Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And joining me in that studio is the acting Steuben County and Family Court Judge and Corning City Court Judge, Matt McCarthy. Hey, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you again, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
I want to do the disclaimer, and just so people are aware, when I interview a judge candidate, it's quite different because you can't really answer anything.
Correct.
You make my job very difficult.
I'm a very boring interview.
Yes,
I hate to say it.
I know. I can't even ask who, what, when, where, and why. It's too much, I think. So just so people are aware, that's why some of it won't get into specifics. Okay, let's start with the softball background.
So I have been the acting Steuben County and Family Court Judge for the last 10 years, as well as the elected Corning City Court Judge. Prior to that, I was an assistant district attorney and represented children in family court for 12 years.
Wow.
So all those things have led me to where I am today.
Wow, and that's how long have you been acting Steuben County Family Court?
10 years. It started
right?
January 1st when I was elected Corning City Court day one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that was part of the job?
I did not.
Okay.
I was made aware by the late Henry Scudder, who was from this area.
Yes, correct.
He was the presiding judge of the 4th Department. And he called me about 2 weeks after I was elected. He said, "You're going to get something in the mail. Congratulations, you're acting county and family court judge." So
that's hilarious. Bonus, I guess,
yes,
right?
I guess. I didn't know what I was in for.
Yeah, it's like when you join some committee, next thing you know, the next week you're treasurer or something.
Yes.
I didn't know that was part of just joining. Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So obviously you've been very busy these last 10 years. Why did you decide to run?
Well, I thought it was time to make that my full-time position.
Yeah. Okay.
Really wanted to focus on the family court and the felony stuff criminal-wise.
Okay.
I've been doing all of that currently. I've been handling misdemeanor jury trials and even a felony jury trial in the last 10 years. And I've done thousands of family court cases. But I've always felt like I could do more. And I really think by running for this position, and if I'm lucky enough to obtain it, that I could do more for the communities and families in Steuben County.
And for those, because we have very astute viewers, and Joe Sempolinski's on a lot, and we talk about the shape of the races going on in our area, and yours is quite different than how things normally work.
Yes.
Could you explain, just as someone said, "Wait, I didn't know Judge McCarthy was running for this"?
So this year was actually my year to run for Corning City Court Judge.
Right.
So I passed petitions and got on the ballot for Corning City Court Judge. And then Judge Roach retired in May.
Okay.
So that created a vacancy for this position.
Okay.
And so I was unopposed running for Corning City Court Judge. So that would have been the safer bet.
You said, "I'm bored."
Yes, I'm well, and really it does come down to the reason I ran for the Corning City Court job 10 years ago was I wanted to serve the public. I've been very fortunate in my private practice, and meeting people and conducting trials, and I wanted to give back. And so when this position became available, I reached out to Joe Sempolinski, who was the chairman of the committee, and said I'm interested in filling that spot. He obviously, the Republican committee met, and Joe nominated me, and Mayor Buckley from Hornell was the second. So I have support across the county. So it was a good day. That was one of my prouder moments.
And that's with the campaign time and the shortened campaign time. Is it difficult in a county so big as Steuben?
Well, so when I ran for Corning City Court Judge, it was a door-to-door, knock-on-the-door campaign.
Yeah.
And we did that starting in April or May.
Okay.
So we knocked on every door in the city at least twice, some of them 4 times. I got to know.
I remember that race well.
Yes.
We talked a lot back then.
Yes. And I was outspent by my opponents in that race by a large margin. But over the course of that time, I knocked on so many doors that I got to know the dogs' names. And
Right.
I still, walking around the neighborhoods now, I still remember the family names.
Oh, of course.
And again, I would just like to reiterate that I really appreciated everybody's support in that election. It changed my life.
Of course.
So taking from there to now, in a shortened time period in a countywide election,
Right.
you have to go to more events. You're not really knocking on doors. We're still knocking on doors and whenever we can, but it's mostly just parades and functions and making sure that everyone knows what my experience is.
That's not too bad. Parades, festivals.
Oh no,
it's too bad.
I kind of was dreading it. And my wife and I were talking because we've had a very busy last year, but we decided, once you do it, it's great. I mean, you get to go out and meet a whole bunch of interesting people. This community is very diverse in their opinions and their prerogatives, and I think it's important that judges go out and see that and experience it, as opposed to just having people come before them in a courtroom setting.
Well, I agree, and this is a 10-year term, which some people aren't aware of. I mean, that's a significant length of time. So when you talk to voters at the festivals and at the fairs, what are they saying?
Well, they're all concerned about crime. Bail reform, obviously, is a big issue in this community. People are concerned for their families. Family court-wise, obviously that's just never going to stop. I mean, there's always going to be the family court. We're disproportionate number of family court cases compared to other counties.
Is that right?
Filed here in Steuben County, yes. So we're very busy with family court. If elected, I plan on 3 days a week being in family court and 2 days a week handling felony matters. So that's the breakdown.
That goes to show you the workload. Wow.
Yeah. And again, the most concern I have, the most concerns that have been relayed to me are mostly just around the fentanyl, drug addiction, mental health. I mean, the bail reform was necessary to an extent, I feel. I think it was an overreaction. It kind of took away a lot of judges' discretion.
Yes.
But the second part of that was supposed to be additional mental health treatment.
Yeah.
And they haven't followed through with that.
No.
So it takes months to get into mental health in Steuben County.
It really doesn't matter who the candidate is or the elected politician is. Fentanyl is a topic, I think, with everybody.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's very scary.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're mixing it in, and you never know. Some people say, well, they're drug addicts.
Yeah.
Those people have never lost somebody that's been close to them. And unfortunately, the families in Steuben County, those are getting to be fewer and fewer people,
right?
Because everybody's affected by this.
It really is, unfortunately, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't think any of us know what the answer is, or we wouldn't be right here today.
Yes.
I mean, it's simple as that. What issues that you can get into have you seen in the past that that you'll have to face if you get this 10 years? Meaning, is fentanyl the biggest issue you're facing? Family court, probably the...
Well, I would say drug addiction and mental health are the two big issues right now. And sometimes those coincide with each other.
Yeah.
Very often an addict is just self-medicating for a mental health problem. And so we need to address that issue. And I feel that going forward in the next 10 years will be a major thing.
Yeah.
And then family court-wise, unfortunately, those issues don't change. It's custody, visitation matters. And then, unfortunately, you deal with child abuse and child neglect. And those matters, in all these departments, right. DA's office, public defender's office, Department of Social Services, police, they're all struggling to find people to occupy those positions. So we're trying to do more with less in Steuben County, and that's the way it's been for the last 10 years, and I can't imagine that's going to change over the next 10 years.
Well, what would you like to see in the next 10 years? You're acting Steuben County and family court judge. Now you're candidate. What would you like to see?
Well, obviously, I'm going to run a fair and impartial court,
of course.
But I think it's efficiency. You need to make sure that you're optimizing what resources are available to us here. Right. And those can be done through drug court, which I've been part of in one form or another for almost 20 years, either as a prosecutor or a presiding judge over both the county and the city drug court. And that's a very good program. Not perfect, but it's the best thing we have. And so I think that it's really just making the most out of the limited resources that we have and not moving things along.
Right. Now, if you're lucky enough, or either way, win, lose, or draw, what do you do when you think about it? How do you reflect on your time in Corning and being the Corning City Court judge?
It's been the pleasure of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Frank, it was so... I didn't know what I was really getting into probably back then, and that's with 12 years of experience and 9 years as a prosecutor. Right. But it's very different when you put on that robe and the responsibility falls to you. You're not the prosecutor. You're not the defense attorney.
Right.
You're an independent arbiter of facts.
Yeah.
And then you have to, in my line of work, unfortunately, you're making decisions that impact people's lives, and you have to take that responsibility seriously. And so I made a promise 10 years ago that I would uphold the values of the community, the Corning City, and the rest of Steuben County. And I think I've done that in the last 10 years, and I would look to do that in the next 10 years.
So before we go, and I'm going to ask how we can help or to find out more, but the question, this is the gotcha question I've been waiting to ask you. How was the Steuben County Fair?
It was fantastic. I mean, a lot of interesting folks, all walks of life.
Yeah.
Conversations were very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
And, whether it's the Steuben County Fair or the Hornell Irish Festival, I mean, just going out and meeting people, a lot of familiar faces and new faces as well. I really enjoyed that. It was a good time.
Isn't it interesting that you can only campaign and do these type of things every 10 years, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I
you
mean,
can't
it's a very short window.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's essentially this race, we're operating within a 6-month time period. So
Yeah.
other politicians are constantly campaigning.
Yeah.
We're limited in what we can do and additionally what we can say and take positions on. It's very difficult in that way. I would like to be able to go out, and the job itself is very isolating.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That is one of the downsides of being a judge is you have to cut all your attorney friends out
Yeah.
and focus and not go out to bars and restaurants that you might like to go to, and occasionally you run into the random person that you put in jail for a period of time, and they aren't always glad to see you.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's difficult.
I could imagine. How much of your life is like Perry Mason or Matlock?
It used to be not necessarily like that, but when you were a practicing attorney, it's more like Night Court with Harry Anderson. If you remember that show, unfortunately not as funny, but there are comedic moments when you're in court. But generally, it's a fairly
wild.
serious thing. Yeah, it's and we do have very good attorneys that practice in the area, which makes it easier on me. It's the better the defense attorney, the better the prosecutor, the easier it is for a judge.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we're talking about your campaign for Steuben County. Why am I telling you? I'm telling the viewer. We're talking about your campaign for Steuben County and Family Court Judge. It's a 10-year term. So how can people help your campaign? How can people find out more?
Well, the first thing and most important thing is whether you're voting for me or any other candidate that's running this year is get out and vote.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one thing. And when I would ask everybody to look at the experience, whether it be myself or any other candidate.
Sure.
That's what they should vote on, not necessarily party line. It's crucial that you look at their history, you look at what they've done, and I'm confident in the success of my campaign if people do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Best of luck. I know we'll talk again before Election Day.
I look forward to it.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big 5.